2022 was one of the best years of my life. I bought a car and moved back to Texas to start a really cool job with a lot of amazing people. I started collecting Criterion movies for the first time, something that has brought me immense joy. And I attended my first ever Super Smash Bros. Tournament. Also, what's true about 2022 is that I consumed a lot of media, a lot of great media, and I want to talk to you about my top 10 favorites from the past year. Now, this includes everything from podcasts, to movies, to music, to literally everything that I took into my body. I'm going to filter out, do some calculations, and then spit out at you 10 cool things that you should check out. So, without further ado, here are 10 cool things. Number 10, Ape Out. In Ape Out, you play as an ape, trying to burst through randomly generated battlefields of dweebs that are trying to shove you in a cage. It's as simple as that, but the game will have you coming back again and again with its high-energy, addictive whimsy. The controls are buttery, the art style pops like an old-school geometric propaganda poster, and the sound design is some of the best I've ever heard in a video game. You know that meme of how every superhero game is supposed to make you feel like that kind of superhero? Well, like, Ape Out makes you feel like the concept of jazz music. Like, you have to be improvisational, but still, like, kind of measured, and everything's just enveloping you in, like, these intoxicating cymbals and drum beats, just pushing you forward. It just fills your heart up with, like, the soul of jazz. Which I know is so corny and stupid, but it's true. Yeah, I had never heard of anybody talk about this game. I guess it's by the same guy who did, it's by several people, but the guy who did the art for it was the same guy who did Getting Over It, that game where you're the guy stuck in the pot. You know what I'm talking about? You like climbing up a mountain in a pot. It kind of got everybody was playing it for a series of time. I don't know when that game came out, but it felt like it was everywhere on the internet for a little while there. It was cool. But this is such a giant departure from that, co-op style. Kind of annoying game. Like, this is so fluid and satisfying. Ooh. Immediate feedback. I pushed the man out the window. Sometimes you just want a game that's like a perfect little bite-sized, morsel of a game. It reminds me a lot of, like, my favorite Flash titles from back in the day, like JMBTO2's This Is the Only Level. It's the perfect kind of thing to just plug into for a couple hours and get lost in. Gorilla! Number 9, The Batman. This movie rules, and people who don't like it are boring. Yeah. I said what I said, okay? Come at me, Batman fans. I literally do not care. It's so good. This movie is an absolute tonal wonder, perfectly blending the campiness that the character has been known for in cinema for over, 50 years with the more modern edge that Nolan and other creators have given him 2010s and up. For example, you have the character of the Penguin. In this movie, the Penguin gets to be a man who owns a club with a iced-themed pun in the name, and he also gets to have a big beaky nose. And he also waddles at one point in the movie. But he still kills people, and it's gruesome, and he's a drug dealer, and it's, disgusting. And I think that's a really cool thing. I think that's awesome. Not because I think, murder makes a character cool or interesting. That's not what I'm saying. Death and, destruction and grit doesn't equal good content. Far from it. What's impressive about The Batman is that it takes the inherent quirkiness of its subject matter, a la a man dressing up as a bat and, going out to fight crime, and it celebrates that quirkiness, but it also doesn't shy away from being something serious and meant to be taken, real and earnestly. The balance of, grit to camp is something that I think comic books have been playing with for a really long time now. And if you're making a really good comic book movie, I think you have to have a solid balance of both things. aside from all of that, you have Robert Pattinson coming back and delivering one heck of an emo sexy rich boy performance that just, like, is a nice little return to form. And it really shows just how, like, awfully written the Twilight movies are. Because, like, in this film, it's never spoken, but you can feel Bruce's struggle with, like, losing himself in the vigilantism of Batman and, like, the vengeance that Batman as a concept kind of represents. It's this, like, fear that's eating him from the inside out. And I think there is, like, an element of that in Edward from Twilight as well, but it's just, like, not done well or explored well. And so, you know, but Robert Pattinson takes Bruce Wayne, the character of Bruce Wayne, and you really see this growth of a person, right? Like, he's brooding, he's dark, but by the end of the film, there's something more to Bruce Wayne in the last scene of the Batman. He has a different mission to live for. Like, Batman becomes something that is also about hope. And he does that without having to put, like, a giant, like, flashing sign on it. You know, there's no, like, neon arrow pointing down and saying, like, look at this character development. It just is. Speaking of neon, the Batman is shot beautifully with these, like, incredibly vivid color palettes that still get across the dark nature of Gotham, right? Like, still give you a quality setting without just fading everything into, like, grays and blues and just, like, losing characters in the muddiness of it all. I think the production design in general on this movie is just, like, so clean. Especially when you talk about the stuff that is designed for Riddler. You get to keep all of the, like, nerdy, puzzly energy of the Riddler while still making him, like, a threat and, like, ominous, you know? It's a cool take, and I'm very excited to see how these designers, how this director continues to interpret the Batman universe. I just hope that we get a couple more sequels out of this sucker. So, you know, that's my thoughts on the Batman. Moving on. Number 8, The Mountain Goats. Every time I dig deeper into the discography of the Mountain Goats, I find myself asking the question, oh, is this my favorite album of theirs? Oh no, this is my favorite album of theirs. Oh wait, I think this is my favorite album of theirs. And I can never just, like, actually land on, like, which one is the best. This year, I found myself vigorously debating against 2 specific albums, though. Their 2022 release, Bleed Out, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because the Batman segment took, like, 10 minutes alone, but also their 2015 record, Beat the Champ. Beat the Champ is a concept album about the down and dirty world of underground wrestling. Not the WWE stuff, I'm talking hometown heroes doing bloody theater for pennies on the dollar. Told with gravitas by lead singer John Darnell, his always fantastic storytelling highlights themes of family, legacy, violence, and mortality. From a musical perspective, Beat the Champ is kind of hard to assign a genre to. I mean, if I had to describe it, I'd go with, like, Broadway folk punk with some rock mixed in there. Yeah. Theatrical wind instruments and piano mixed with bouncy acoustics and raw vocals to make something that feels really unique. But it's still earwormy and easy to listen to on a casual basis. My personal favorite tracks include the eerily fun but still introspective werewolf gimmick, the song Choked Out, which really just, like, oh, sends shivers up my spine, and the incredibly heart-wrenching Ballad of Bull Ramos, which just, like, made me cry a lot this year. If you haven't listened to the Mountain Goats, go listen to the Mountain Goats, and if you need a place to start, Beat the Champ is a great record. Number 7, A Night in the Woods. When people say video games aren't art, 2 things immediately come into my brain. The first is frustration at their general ignorance, and the second is that I, like, start to list all of the games that are just, like, incredible to me. Because, you know, when people say stuff like video games aren't art, what they're really saying is I have never had a video game affect me the same way that other media has, the same way that other art has. And I want to, like, reassure them that there are video games out there that can affect you emotionally, deeply, personally. And when I think about games that make me personally feel something, like, real and deep and, like, guttural, I think about A Night in the Woods. And I think that if there's ever a game that was going to convince somebody that video games are art, it would be A Night in the Woods. In this game, you play as May, a 20-something who has dropped out of college and come home to her dying town of Possum Springs. All her friends have changed, her parents are changed, and there's this eerie, overlying mystery to everything that she kind of wants to solve, but is also just doing her dead level best to keep it together mentally. But with a sardonic sense of humor and a couple of people who really do care about her well-being, May goes on to combat the bubbling dread that is her life. The way A Night in the Woods approaches gameplay is pretty different from how I've seen other indie titles, like, go about it. Rather than working outwards from, like, a central cool mechanic, everything about A Night in the Woods is informed by the storytelling itself. May plays the bass, so there's, like, a cool rhythm game section. May wants to go feed some rats, so you go and play a bagel stealing minigame. May's neighbor is an amateur astronomer, so you, like, connect constellations in his telescope. It's all stuff that is character first, and from that character motivation comes gameplay elements. That's not to say every single scene is scripted. As a player, you do get to choose a lot about A Night in the Woods. You get to choose who May hangs out with, what her hobbies are, but there are some things that just kind of happen in The Night in the Woods for the sake of scripted storytelling. And that's a hard dynamic to balance, the script and the player choice of it all. You run the risk of having somebody run into a bunch of scenarios and going, well, I wouldn't have chosen that option. But I think the realism of Night in the Woods really justifies this approach, this tension between player choice and script-heavy dialogue. May can see the immediate doors in front of her, but the consequences of her actions are vastly distant. She's not a character with clear goals. Just like a player trying to make the choice, May doesn't really know what's going on, and she's just trying to figure it out. It's, again, this really elegant balance between game mechanics and character emphasis. There's only so much you can do as May, and there's only so much you can do in real life. She wants to make the people around her happy. She wants to make herself happy, but it's always really unclear, and sometimes neither option really leads to a point where, like, joy can come out of it. And I really felt for the character in that journey. It felt so real and honest. $20 on Steam for this game is a steal for the kind of depth that it delivers. And you can absolutely get it cheaper if you hit it up during a sale. Plus, there's ports for all kinds of consoles now, so get that sucker in a wish list ASAP. Hey. This is day 2 of filming. I'm back. My hair looks worse. I'm wearing pajamas and a Smash World Tour defunct long sleeve. We're just gonna keep going forward. This might take another day recording. I felt like I need to say something. That is what this is. Okay, let's move on. My number 6 is the Beths. Now, the Beths are a rock pop band out of New Zealand that have been around since 2014, but I just really, like, plugged into their music in 2022, and I think what I like the most about it is the lyricism. Don't get me wrong, the actual jams are great. Super, super easy to just plug into no matter what you're doing, you know, driving the car, washing the dishes, whatever. But if you take the time and just, like, fully grok their albums, right? Fully process what they're saying, I think you'll find something really special and interesting. Probably, like, one of my favorite Beth's metaphors comes from their title track on the album, Expert in a Dying Field. In that song, they liken the end of a long-term relationship to that of a academic whose field is slowly losing cultural relevance and, like, the zeitgeist. Another one that I really, really love is a song called I'm Not Getting Excited, which is in part a lot about measuring your expectations. At one point in the song, they kind of describe it like falling, but you know you're gonna fall, so you keep your hands soft before you like hit the ground. It's really, really good. And then there's the song Uptown Girl, which is absolutely insane. It goes after like self-destructive behavior with a Princess Bride reference. But yeah, you just gotta love the Beths. They're such a cool group. If you need an entry point, like I was saying, Expert in a Dying Field, great entry point, full of just gems. Every song is something that's kind of special and interesting, and I just really, really enjoy, so yay! Number 5, Pinocchio. So 2022 was the year that stop motion, like, kinda was, like, making a comeback. And, you know, we've kind of been on the precipice of stop motion coming back. Studio Laika, has been just, like, knocking stuff out of the park for a long time now. This year was, like, all kinds of studios were just making stop motion in movies. Like, all kinds. I'm looking at notes. There was Mad God, right, which had been in production for like 20 years. Wendell and Wild came out. Marcel the Shell came out, which also had an insanely long production cycle. But, you know, out of all of the stop motion movies that came out in 2022, the best one was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Set in Italy at the end of World War I, Guillermo del Toro's take on Pinocchio is sort of Frankensteinian. He casts Geppetto as this grieving father who's drunkenly creating a wooden boy, never expecting it to truly come to life. And then, once Pinocchio is born, both father and son have to grapple with this new kind of weird, awkward relationship that does kind of bring them both a lot of joy, as well as navigate a world of like fascists and capitalists who are looking to exploit the miracle that is Pinocchio. With this project, Del Toro was able to punch through like my onset remake fatigue with just like so much like freedom and expression. The themes that it presents are super interesting and easy to just dig into with a knife and a fork. Every character has a well-rounded arc that just like perfectly goes from one place to the other place, and it's just, oh, wow, so nice that there's payoff. And I mean, like, the art style, looking at this movie is magnificent. I mean, it's just like, oh, look at that movie! Everything is so natural and lived in. It looks like the characters have been living in this world for decades. And it really, really just kind of puts into perspective how absolute trash every live-action Disney remake has been. This movie feels more magical than a Disney live-action remake. It feels more purposeful than a Disney live-action remake. It feels like it has more heart than a Disney live-action remake. It's more of a movie than any Disney live-action remake. It feels like it's earned its own existence, okay? Not like it was just thought up in a boardroom and then resold to everybody. I'm sorry, if you like the Disney live-action remakes, that's fine. Like them, enjoy them, but compare this Pinocchio to the Disney live-action Pinocchio, because it's all just animated as well. Just want to throw that out there. They're all animated movies. They're all do the comparison, and I think you can find that this is a remake with soul and heart. And the Disney live-action remakes just want your money. They just want to exploit your nostalgia. And that's a disservice to you as a person who deserves quality entertainment. You deserve quality entertainment. I am telling you now, as a friend, okay? As your internet friend, you deserve it. You deserve people respecting you. Okay? Getting that out there. And you know, I don't want to get into the weeds of the story and talk to you about all of the little things that make it so great, because just like all of Guillermo del Toro's movies, you know, they're like Wonder Balls. You know, there's surprise. You go for the chocolate. You know it's Del Toro, so you go for the pretty scenery, and you know it's gonna be a cool monster and all of this stuff. But then you dig in, and there's this like there's these beautiful relationships and beautiful plots and just like beautiful storytelling. I don't want to spoil that for you. I don't want to spoil that for you. I went to go see this movie super late at night. I think it was like a Saturday night at like 10:30. It was only playing in one theater around me. I had to drive 25 minutes to get to it because Netflix doesn't put stuff out in the theaters super long. And like, I ugly cried for us, you know, through the whole credits. I was weeping. So yeah, if you have to pick through all of the myriad of stop motion movies that came out last year, pick Pinocchio. It's worth your time, I promise. Number 4, Jid. J-I-D, Jid is the most underrated artist in rap. Bar none. Bar none. He's got impeccable flow that'll break the ankles of pretty much all of his contemporaries. He's got storytelling ability that is clear and vulnerable and engaging. And the production on his albums just like punches you in the freaking neck like over and over again. He sings. The man can do it all. He can do everything. His 2018 record, DiCaprio 2, which I think might be a mixtape. I'm not 100% clear. What really put J.I.D. on the map was DiCaprio 2. This record is all about J.I.D.'s come up from a difficult situation in Atlanta and how he's now this kind of pretty respected figure in the rap industry. Getting into a few of the tracks, Slick Talk, great song. It's one of the first on the record, and in it, he's critiquing his contemporaries and like giving you an insight into his own mindset while also establishing a through line for the entire album. In this song, he sets you up with all of this braggadocio, right? Talking about how he's basically like the greatest to ever do it, all of this stuff. And then he slams you back down into reality with a beat switch up, but also this very personal, very honest, very vulnerable story that doesn't match up with the braggadocio. He does the same kind of thing on what would end up being the breakout single from DiCaprio 2, 151 Rum. You probably heard it at like a football stadium. They play it a lot at like big sporting events. I think it's probably the most deceptive song since Hey Ya. The beat will rip you up, but he's talking about like kids eating bugs and like getting shot in the street. A brutal look at poverty in America. And just, you know, a heartbreaker of a track for as bopping as it sounds. Like, it is a bop, you know, true bop. All of DiCaprio 2 is just like, oh, well, you think this one thing? You think this is what this song is going to be? You think this is what I should do? Well, I'm gonna pull the rug out from under you. This is what it actually is. Set you up, subvert the expectation every single time on that record. But when we're talking about the Forever Story, the album that is J.I.D.'s newest release, released in 2022, it's a totally different kind of vibe, right? Something much more straightforward, honest, like somebody's just talking to you in a coffee shop. Completely different vibe than like, whoosh, the rug's pulled out from under you. But I think, personally, for me, I think the Forever Story is like even better than DiCaprio 2. And you heard how much I was like talking up that record. It's all about family and artistic pursuit and like being black in America and how all of those things crash into each other and how they all relate to each other and the highs of all of those things and the lows of all of those things. And there was a lot of that on DiCaprio 2 as well, right? But like DiCaprio, it almost feels like DiCaprio 2 is like the prestige Oscar drama, right? That like won all the awards, and the Forever Story is the documentary that it was based on that is like so much better than the movie. That's what it feels like to me. There's no rug tricks. It's just all on the table. The opening tracks, Galaxy and Radar, are like the best back-to-back combo I heard on anything this year, just period. He kicks off the record with a gorgeous harmony that he's singing himself, by the way, and it's all about hope and love, and then he launches into this like biting retort on like systematic oppression. But he still keeps that initial like hope and love alive in the lyrics, but it's also this third thing that is also true. But my favorite pull from this record is the finale. Water 2 is ridiculous. I heard this for the first time and pulled the car over, okay? It's ridiculous. Just the absolute perfect bookend for, 45 minutes of non-stop, super just cool music, right? Perfect bookend. Perfect! DiCaprio 2, great record. The Forever Story, fantastic record. Jid, ridiculous, most underrated artist in rap. Those are the takeaways, friends. So definitely check this guy out. You'll thank me, hopefully. If you don't, that's okay. You don't gotta thank me. But if you do, I want to know. I'd love to read your comments. Hey. I'm busting out the Arizona tea for this. Oh, I didn't even have my mic set up. Also, the JID segment was too long, and I'm not gonna re-record it, so everything else going forward is gonna feel remarkably shorter. Number 3, Severance. Have you ever felt like a different person at work? Like the corporate you is just a totally different person from the real you. Well, the TV show Severance takes that like uncomfortable back of your head feeling and makes it into like the most horrific premise for a TV show possible. In this mystery, thriller, sci-fi drama directed by Ben Stiller, Severance is a medical procedure in which the participant has their work self fully cut off from their home self via brain surgery. The home self has no concept of what happens at work, and the work self has no concept of what happens at home. When you're separated like that, can you really say you're one person? Or is your work self nothing more than a slave to your home self? What kind of company and what kind of individuals running the company would operate under such a weird moral gray area? What kind of job would they want to give somebody that couldn't remember a life outside of it? And, what kind of person would have this done to them willingly? And if they did have it done to them willingly, would they regret that choice, or even would it be possible for them to regret that choice? And furthermore, what does that say anything? Does it say anything about our modern work culture, about our true, real lives out here in the real world with real corporate people? What does the show's writing ends up playing in all these fun spaces, but it also speaks a lot to the general human experience too. The world of Severance may be this brutalist sci-fi creation, but the truth of this TV show is a very warm human complexity that is expertly acted through by the entire cast. Like, it's a weird sci-fi thriller, but it's also a comedy and like an awkward romance and just a very earnest drama about loss. They're able to balance all of these conflicting tones so well, and the show comes across as just a very balanced, smart, well-done piece of media. If it ever gets a physical release, I'm absolutely picking up a Blu-ray copy, but until then, you can check it out on Apple+. Number 2, Chicory, A Colorful Tale. I could have made this whole video on Chicory, A Colorful Tale. I could have made an hour-long video on Chicory, A Colorful Tale. This game is probably one of the best video games I've ever played in my entire life. And I know I have been pretty intense and hyperbolic almost on a lot of these top 10 things. I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever. JD's the most underrated artist in rap. If you don't like the Batman, you can kiss my butt, whatever. But with Chicory, I super mean it. My top 5 video games, if I was gonna list them out for you: Super Smash Bros. Melee, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, Hollow Knight, and Chicory. Top 5. That's 5, baby. You just got a listicle within a listicle. In Chicory, you play as a little dog protagonist named after your favorite food. So you play as Pizza. Pizza is a janitor who looks after the magical Wielder's Tower in the land of Picnic. One day, while cleaning the tower, all of the color in Picnic disappears, leaving the world completely in black and white. Pizza immediately seeks the help of Chicory, the current wielder, or paintbrush holder, who's responsible for painting all of Picnic with color. But when Pizza is unable to get Chicory's help, she takes the brush on herself, becoming the new wielder. And even though she's completely inexperienced as an artist, she leaps at the chance to bring color back to the world. It's 1 part puzzle game, 1 part collectathon, and 1 part painting simulator. Every second of this game is a delight. It's so cute. It's so well written. It's gorgeous. It's great. It's great. It's so good. The tools it equips you with, both in terms of movement and artistic creation, are wide-reaching but not overwhelming. If you've never ever even wanted to create art, you can paint in Chicory and it feels like it just comes naturally to you. It feels like you're a kid again finger painting. And also, if you've never played a video game before, the controls are simple enough that anybody could pick it up and just boop 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 and start playing and have a really good time, just like it's your first video game. But there's still, if you're a veteran painter or you're a veteran gamer, there's still enough complexity there that the game will feel fluid and fun for you, and the painting will feel like an interesting challenge. Each level is designed with such clever elements guiding you through it, so I never was lost. The world building is just insanely immersive with this great dialogue, and the music is godlike. The music is ridiculous. There are so many themes, and there's so much nuance in this score, and it just sounds so good. I don't know what the composer got paid for it, but it wasn't enough. It was not enough. Despite the setting being pretty whimsical, right? Like I was talking about the Wielder Tower, and there's a dog person that you play as. The characters in Chicory Colorful Tale have a profound relatability to them. It's such a grounded game, despite the fact that you ride around on, bug cars. Not only do you want to beat the main story mission because you love art and video games and just, completing cool challenges, but also because you want to help these people in this town, right? You don't want to see them succumb to this vast darkness, right? And lose all of the color in the world. And speaking of darkness, this game gets really dark. You don't expect how serious Chicory gets from the coloring book vibes. This is a game about insecurity, depression, relational turmoil, identity, and just all of this really deep-rooted stuff, especially for me personally. I struggle with all of those things. But even in all of that darkness, Chicory never stops shining like a beacon of joy. Playing as Pizza, the art dog, just filled me with this lightness that I don't think I've really ever felt playing another video game. If you've ever had ambition, if you've ever felt adrift, or if you're just simply looking for a really cool way to pass the time, go download Chicory A Colorful Tale. It'll cost you less than a movie ticket, but it'll keep you entertained for 10 times as long. Okay, I'm about to get into number 1 territory, but before I do that, Wait. I just wanted to throw out a couple of, these are my honorable mentions, okay? You'll see them flash across the screen. I don't even know if anybody will care or look at them, but I just want them on record, because how I made this list was every single time I found something even slightly cool or interesting, I wrote it down, and I also wrote a mini review for it. So there's literally like 50 pages of unused Isaac garbage out there, and I just want at least a PNG representation of my honorable mentions that I have written out that you will never see, okay? Fantastic. Oh look, there's Nightmare Alley, okay? It would have been on this list, but I had a Del Toro film on here. So, never see my Nightmare Alley review. Never gonna be out there, but it's a great film! Oh hey, it's Webs, and Hades, and Frog Detective. And those were all games that I really liked, and they were really good. And here's a bunch more movies, and here's some podcasts, and here's a bunch of TV shows. I literally only mentioned one TV show. And anime. Let's get this show on the road. Number 1, baby. I'm calling it now. Best Picture winner. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Spectacular film. Movie of the year. Movie of the last, 5 years, okay? This film rips. Watching it felt like an out-of-body experience. It felt like I was witnessing a film evolution in front of me. With basically no staff, an extraordinarily small budget, and a bunch of actors that have been deeply, deeply undervalued for decades, the directing team of Daniels have given us a film that not only rivals the zany playfulness of effects-driven blockbusters, but it allows for an emotional catharsis that's just rare to find in all filmmaking today. If Pinocchio was the wake-up call for reboot culture in cinema, then Everything Everywhere All at Once should be alarm bells for the entire entertainment industry. People should be hearing a blaring siren right now in Beverly Hills. Because after I saw this movie, I was like, this is what I want out of movies. This is what I want out of movies. All movies. This is what's worthy of people's time. This is what it's worthy of people's attention. It's art, it's spectacle, it's what this medium was made to do. It's what it was made to do. It is exceptionally detailed. It is expertly structured. The gauntlet's been thrown. Every modern movie with an action sequence, I'm gonna compare it to the action sequences in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Movies going forward will not escape this film for me. They just won't. I see things through the lens of this now. Thematically, the story is all-encompassing. It's about love in all of its many forms. It's about generational misunderstanding, which, how more prevalent could you get? It's about cultural misunderstanding. It's about ambition, regret, family. The most universal moments in our lives as human beings. But the movie also never loses its specificity. The characters feel like characters, not archetypes. You're not supposed to project yourself onto all of them. It has such a genuine, true vision for what it is supposed to be. And it hit me with everything it had. And I'm kind of, just like when I was talking about Pinocchio, I don't want to spoil this movie for you. I don't want to say anything else, because I've already hyped it up one heck of a lot, right? A. But B, seeing this movie and going in with just an Instagram trailer in the back of my mind was just pure kinetic magic for me. It was magic. So go rent that movie. Put your dollar to work. Because I just believe with my whole heart that the world needs more films like this one. And nothing speaks louder than freaking cashish, okay? So give your time, give your money, and hopefully we can get a couple more just like this one, because man, what a feature film.